Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. What's going on in your world? Hope you're doing great. Just thought I'd do another video, obviously. So here I am, and I came across this what was it this morning? And I said, now I got to do another video. So there's now tie-dye squirrels. Okay, these squirrels are from India. They're twice the size of our squirrels that we have here that you normally have in your neighborhood. But you can see from the picture that I have posted on this that they're definitely tie-dyed. So they're multicolored squirrels, which are cool because they'll match the multicolored geysers now in Yellowstone, and they'll so maybe we should uh, check those out. Yeah. So they'll go in. What was the other multicolored animals? So we're getting a lot of interesting multicolored animals. Like this is like a tie-dye squirrel. Nobody dyed it. These are real squirrels. Okay. So um, somebody, as the story goes, miraculously, a photographer was out in India in some backwoods and happened upon them after a day in the woods, and he took some photos and posted them on the internet, and now they're an internet sensation. Rainbow mountains, yes, rainbow geysers, and now squirrels. Correct. So, and I have a theory about that I'll maybe share later. Um, so it's definitely crazy. So you're getting rainbow squirrels. We have the rainbow mountains. Oh, there was this other. There's this other. There's this rainbow river, which is in I believe Colorado or somewhere near Colorado. Utah, there's this rainbow river. So if you go there, it's like multicolor. It's really neat. There were some other, and I'm somebody mentioned in one of my videos in the comments, and I do read all the comments, and I respond. Believe it or not, they said that yeah, I'm not a big movie star yet. I have time to respond, strangely enough. Um, so they said that, this isn't really a Mandela effect because it has to do with, animals. I said, no, that's not. It's, I find that it's like there's categories. I said, so I'm putting this under the Rainbow River is in Florida. Is that right? Dark Wolf's Den? Well, that's neat. Thanks so much for your comment. So I'm doing categories. So this would be under the animal category. Unlike, so right now I think it's like, it seems to me like it's a spectrum. We had insects the other day, and now we're going up to marsupials, and maybe it's going up the food chain, as it were, and we'll have some biological changes in humans soon. Um, Rainbow trees, right? So we have a lot of neat rainbow things. Maybe the correct way to do this, I like when my point, my finger's so huge. It's bigger than my head. So the correct way would be to put the Mandela effect, like certain ones, in rainbow categories. Um, there's this guy on the web, Undamangi. He has a crazy accent, but I love him. He does some videos, and he says about the color always changing, and his color saturation seems to change in film. So he finds that he has an ad. He has an ad TV. Ad TV. I don't know what that is, but Sounds interesting. So he a bad TV. Oh yeah, you know what? I thought so too. I was like, maybe you just have a bad TV. But before he started doing the color saturation, his Mandela videos were fascinating. He came up with all this neat stuff. The guy, just to briefly talk about him, is a he's in the art world. He does like appraisals for art or something like that, and he was well aware of now there's 3,000 Van Goghs, and you know I heard about that, and he heard about it, but he's like an expert. Like this is the guy that appraises art. Like he's in the art auction kind of world, and for him to see and realize that instead of there being 30 Van Goghs or 40 Van Goghs, there are 3,000 Van Goghs now. Like there's Van Goghs all over the place. Like, you know, how prolific could the guy have been? That would be like him having a painting done like every day for 5 years. Like it's insane. It makes total no sense at all. And one could use that as proof of some kind of thing about the Mandela effect if you were gonna try to go down that road. I recently, you know, posted on a Mandela Effect on a Facebook page. I had, you know, a couple of proofs that I just thought to do, and the, you know, in the like the devil take over my fingertips, and I just started. I said somebody started doubting what I was saying. They're like, "Oh yeah, that's just somebody spelling it differently." I'm like, "Really?" So 20 published authors for the covers of the books, and within them like 20 different separate authors all had the same spelling error. These are authors. Do you think they did that in their books, and the books are still accessible online with these same spelling errors? Does that make sense to you? So and subsequently right after that they took down all the proofs and, you know, deleted it. So there is a like a cover up, you know. The one thing that really made me question a lot of things, and I talked about this a couple of videos ago, was there was a McCormick, was his name. I think it was Jeffrey McCormick. He did the largest internet hack against the U.S. government. He's a Brit, and or is he Scotland or whatever? Same thing, really. Now, in this timeline, so you got to do it like that, right? In this timeline, um, it cracks me up for some reason. So he went and did the largest internet hack, and then they have him on video saying, you know, before I watched his videos, I said, boy, that's proof that the U.S. has a space fleet, like a secret space fleet, and that Corey Good talks about, and what's his name? Starts with an H, but all those the Wikipedia changed, and all the information he gave interviews about it. Most of it's gone. The interview of him talking about the secret space fleet that he found by hacking into NASA's website. He found lists of crew members and names of the spaceships and all that kind of information. He doesn't even talk about it in his video, and there's no like it's like he doesn't remember that that was the reality that he had before. So, you know, one would draw a conclusion that somehow the U.S. government had a ability to hack reality, and they didn't want him divulging this. Or Gary McKinnick, right? Correct, Dark Wolfstead. See, I knew you'd know that. My big finger pointing at you. Thank you. So, oversized large digit, and then that was another Mandela effect I saw. I don't know if that one would be categorized as a Mandela effect, but this guy in India had a hand that was like huge. It was very strange. So I pay attention to stuff, but and anyway, so Gary McKinnick now in his videos, it's not just retracted, it's gone. So like that history kind of disappeared, and now if you look at the what's out there, it seems to be missing. One of the things that I've noticed about the Mandela effect, and I'll share this with you, is that there seems to be for something to be manipulated into our reality, there's a tie down to it. Like for instance, and this will sound, not that anything I say doesn't sound crazy, but this goes over the bend, I guess. Let's, truth be told, if I sound crazy, let's just go past it. We're in crazy land now. When North Korea moved to near Japan versus where it was in the Philippines, when it moved, they had to tie down. I saw a lot of tie down with the history of it, and then there was this like a wreck, like not a Spanish galleon, but a wreck with a lot of gold on it, and this is a record-breaking amount of gold was found off the coast of, I think where it was in South Korea, and it just was like, and that like was reinforcing the fact that there was a war between the Koreas and Russia. So it was a Russian, as I recall, Russian freighter filled with gold that sunk, and that was because of the war. They had a small war, and then I was like, that would make, that was like the tie down for the history of that to be there. Like it seems like that is the tie down. Like they'll drop something, will drop in the news, and then it'll be the tie down to the other thing. So I don't believe that your reality can be manipulated in a sense without you being seeing these things in your reality. But if you're so for you to have these things change, and for then you'll say, that'll be the proof. Well, you say, well, North Korea didn't, and South Korea didn't, the Korea's, the peninsula, the whole country didn't move, because we have this war, and then the war happened because we have proof because they just found this ship that wrecked, and that was the proof. So it seems like the effect happens, and then the history kind of fills in afterwards to make sense of it, if that makes sense. So you could look at it that way. If you're and from our point of view, the only thing that you could think of is a timeline shift, and when the time, because that's the only way from our point of view, I think, to make sense of it. If you look at it like a timeline shift, then a timeline would shift, and then the corroborating history timeline kind of fills in. One could say that, and I wouldn't. I mean, it's easy to fall into the timeline mindset, because the mind wants to cling on to some kind of logical narrative about it, to think that's just all abstract random things. That it's not. The other way to really think about it would be if somehow we're in a simulation, and those things were put in here as tie downs to give it more background. It's like somebody's typing away and writing a script, and then oh yeah, and then they we got to put this over here and this over there. It didn't happen all at once, so if you were analyzing it, it looks more like a timeline switch. But maybe that's because we don't have, from our perspective of time versus where it's coming from, it could be different. It's all random thoughts, about that. So I'm trying to analyze it with you, um, a little bit. But to circle back, the interesting thing is about the um, more rainbow, things are happening. Now we have the rainbow squirrels, which I think it's great. I think it's hilarious, and it's wonderful. We need more rainbow squirrels. And they have these horses, right? That are prismatic horses. Did you hear about that one? These horses were quote unquote, bred to have these coats that reflect light. Um, so they're they're very now. Of course, they're very rare. Um, I believe they're in Saudi Arabia or somewhere, and these horses that have been around for a while, but we just never heard about them before. Yeah, these horses have these fur that reflects light, so it's like a rainbow horse, but it's really crazy looking at these horses. Like, I want a horse anyway, but I want a rain. Will somebody buy me a rainbow horse, please? That'd be a cool gift. I'll give Victor a rainbow horse. I don't want a rainbow pony, Dad. It'll go along with my rainbow squirrel climbing up my rainbow tree. And then it'll drink from the rainbow river. That'll be perfect. And I'll just paint my house in rainbows and we'll be cool. So I gotta get that going on. I just need to win the Mega Millions or Lotto, and if I did, that would happen with my large digit pointing at you. I would get that rainbow squirrel and that rainbow horse and all that stuff. Uh, Rainbow trout, yeah, right. Rainbow trout. I remember reading about that. That was just iridescence because of scales. How far back does this go in our lives and our timelines? Is our whole life now Mandela affected? Um, was the Mandela effect one, instant, and then it went back in everyone's timeline and then forward and changed it? So the question would be: are rainbow trout Mandela affected from our past, that we just assumed that everybody knew about rainbow trout, but now the rainbow trout? I my gut would tell me that rainbow trouts were just rainbow trouts, but you can't tell for sure. But anything before, I think, 2015 seems to be non Mandela effect. When I say 2015, I mean that things were Mandela affected before that. I think a few things. Case in point, Nelson Mandela, and some of those instances. But I think that a lot of it all transpired around that time frame. In fact, there was this video I watched. Just share this with you briefly. And I don't like to borrow from other people's videos, although I'm doing that tonight. But just to share, and they had this guy did a graph. You could actually go on Google and see how many times people put queries into the system for certain subjects, like Nelson Mandela. And then there was this big spike around 2015, like crazy spike, when people started talking about the Mandela effect. And then if you type in like Kit Kat, then there's this big spike around 2015, like crazy spike, when people started talking about the Mandela effect. And then certain, if you type in like Kit Kat, then there's this big spike around 2015, like crazy spike, when people started talking about the Mandela effect. And then certain, if you type in like Kit Kat, and certain things. All of a sudden, 2015, how many people are searching the word Kit Kat or a picture of a Kit Kat, and skyrocketed. So they someone did a which, being that this is a spiritual scientist channel, would mean I get turned on to that because it's a scientific way to track what's the heck going on. And it seemed to be all those kind of, there was a little bit, and then 2015 it like spiked up. So another theory that I had was we were entering, if you recall, if anybody recalls, we were entering a high plasma dense area of the universe. After the year 2012, there was the Kala Yugi, which the Indians say that we actually revolved around the universe. Did it turn once, and that was why they were saying the Indians had their own theory about 2012 being like the end of the world in a way, because we were going to everything was going to change. We're going from the age of Aquarius. What was it? We were going age of Aquarius to Pisces, and all this other metaphysical mumbo jumbo, right? But the scientists were saying that we're entering this highly dense energy system that was supposed to be, we're supposed to be in like for 5,000 years, that we're going through. And everybody was saying, boy, wonder what's going to happen when we go through this high dense energy system. Could that be the reason that these Mandela effects occurred? Because we're in this higher dense realm where more multi-dimensional things are happening. Could that be it? Could it be CERN? Could it be quantum computers? And in fact, if you look at the guys behind quantum computers, they talk about how quantum computers use multi-dimensional mechanics to actually work. So everybody kind of knows this, right? You know that it's not just ones and zeros within those particles are, spinning. They'll have a different spin, and use entanglement to one will spin like another. And so I mentioned this before. I believe it was at the LIGO. I was emailing a scientist there, and I said, would it be interesting? We don't have enough. We have like 2 grams of antimatter, I think, on the planet right now. But I said, wouldn't it be interesting? And he said that basically that's how it is a quantum computer using, antimatter. If we used antimatter in a quantum computer, because they're basically, they're at pretty much absolute zero, and they're suspended in a magnetic field anyway. Maybe we should use, I said, antimatter. If they were using antimatter, matter and antimatter are different, because antimatter is matter that's traveling backwards in time. So if we were using antimatter in a quantum computer, my theory would be that if you were typing in the question, before you finished asking the question, like the answer could actually come up. Like you might go up to a quantum computer using antimatter and just go up and look at the screen, and it would have the answer before you ask the question, because it's actually traveling backwards in time. So I posed, the question, but the scientist never got back to me. And then all these, Mandela Effect things happened. I said, maybe I gave away too much. Maybe I should have said that. Maybe somehow the U.S. government has a quantum computer using antimatter that's screwing everything up. Who knows, But that to me makes a lot of sense. if it's coming up with the answers before you ask the question, that really, makes you want to scratch your cerebellum, right? You want to scratch your and rub on your medulla oblongata there a little bit and say, hey, what the heck? Um, that would be interesting if they are able to quantum entangle, particles going reverse. Now, I thought about it a little bit, and I don't think that it would, because there's still causality. So even though they're traveling backwards in time, it'd be a good test. It'd be a good, interesting test to see. And I think they have 2 grams of antimatter on the Earth. It costs to make 1 gram of antimatter. They could do it with these hadron colliders. It costs like $1 billion, an insane amount of money to do it because of the energy and everything. But if they already have it, might as well use it to, test out my theory and see what happens. But maybe they did that and we're seeing the effects. Like, you know, anyway, I see I only have one person on. I had 3 before and only one's left over. So sorry to bore you with my conjecturing, but I thought it was interesting. So we now, to circle back to the very beginning, we now have rainbow squirrels. Enjoy the rainbow squirrels. Yes, you're my #1 fan, Dark Wolf Den. Thank you so much. And by the way, Dark Wolf Den, not to, I see you on a couple other you know websites, and I appreciate your enthusiasm towards this. If you have any theories you ever want to share with me, I'm happy to take them under consideration. But I did enjoy that you helped me once with something that was really good, and we made a video about it. But it totally bugged me out about the end of the songs changing. There was the Queen song and then Queen's Reich, and there was many examples, and that was freaky. Freaked me out. Freaked me out. So like I said before, it seems like I think there's just let me say this one last thing. I think we have different types of Mandela effects, and I think that like for instance, the flip-flops, right? I think we have different categories. So I'm putting this under the rainbow category. Like the rainbows themselves are the rainbow under the rainbow category. Now there's 22 types of rainbows. Did you know about? I'm sure if Dark Wolf Den, I'm sure you know about the moon rainbow now. Which I really didn't look at too much. I kind of looked at it and ignored because I do that because sometimes it's just really weird. But there's like a moon rainbow now, that the moon gets so bright that it creates a rainbow sometimes during a full moon, if it was raining out. Well, I'm like, what? And now there's like 22 different types. I think it was 22 different types of rainbows. Moonbow, yeah, moonbow. Now there's like, when they came out with these double rainbows, and I fell for it. I was like, oh yeah, double rainbow, yeah, cool. Like, would make sense, I guess, double rainbow. But then there's just all these other bows. There's now a rainbow there's a rainbow that comes out of the waterfall, which is normal, but there's this other one that's known for it that's really weird. There's like a fire waterfall, and then there was this rainbow that doesn't touch the ground. It's just a rainbow up in the air, which you're like, okay. And then there was a rainbow that you can actually, the rainbow, you could never get to the end of the rainbow. That's why they said, Dorothy and all the things at the end of the rainbow. That's where I got it from. And now you could literally walk through a rainbow, like it ends at a certain place. and then you walk through and back and forth. And that to me, I was like, what? And someone was showing a car like driving through on a highway, all these cars like driving through the ends of the rainbow. And that to me is really trippy. Like, that's crazy that you can actually get to the end of the rainbows. Rainbows used to actually never touch ground. Correct. Now we have rainbows that, and now they're more bow shaped. And I was under the impression that maybe the colors changed in the rainbow, but we didn't know it. It could have reversed. I was trying to remember how the rainbows were before versus now, if the rainbows were, and if all the color spectrum reversed. I'm, I'm, I'm still not sure because I just don't remember how. I guess I didn't color enough rainbows in when I was a kid to remember if the colors are inverted. I I don't know. I'm not sure, but I kind of try to pay attention to everything and noticing if the color or inverted or somehow the color spectrum's changed. I watched a periodic table. I try to memorize it, and if any of the, I thought the helium changed, like this was back in 2015. I thought helium went up a value. It was at like, what was it? It was at 1, and it went up, like it doubled in with the like shell. The helium, like I'm talking about the particle helium. And then they have this new, they were building this, and they still are, I believe, in Europe. They're building a device that they spent like $1 billion on to make like helium. It's going to go into a magnetic field. In the magnetic field, they would superheat it, and supposed to be as powerful as the sun, and that was supposed to give off more energy than what goes into it. So eventually in the year, they said 2020, they were saying, but now it's 2030, that they keeps moving, that would come about. Hydrogen, was it not helium, hydrogen. And they said it wouldn't work. Like, why would they spend like billions of dollars on something that didn't work? But then when I saw that the hydrogen atom like changed on the periodic table, then this machine can work. So I'm like, so that's why. Before, why would they spend $20 million on it? Now they're saying, yeah, they think it'll work, but it's very difficult because the magnetic fields around it are we don't have the technology to make it stable enough, but yet they're spending billions of dollars on it. I assume by the time they get to the point where they need it to work, that somehow they're going to figure out the equations to make the magnetic fields work with this, which should be very interesting. And I was going to talk about something else. I just was losing track about the about all this. The guy who was I really got deep into it once. The guy who was doing the working on these equations about the magnetic fields. Oh yeah, rainbow grapes, right? The Maxwell was working on the magnetic fields. A lot of his information now has changed. That his equations they came up with before. The other thing was the Einstein-Rosenberg bridge. It was now it's Einstein-Rosen bridge. It was Rosenberg, so that changed. But the one thing that I was searching for, to me, would make sense and tie everything together was, oh yeah, I was going to tell you about the Bernstein Bears. Um, and I was trying to, there was a guy who was publicist whose last name was Bernstein, and he was working on he was helping to get stuff published from Einstein and from like other, I believe, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Maxwell with the magnetic fields and hydrogen and the hydrogen, sorry. I don't want to say helium, I'm tired. So, in those equations, like the whole theory, like changed around a bit. I said maybe that's why the Bernstein Bears. Maybe that's why the name changed. I thought because I was trying to see if we're in if we're in a like hologram or whatever, if we're like in a simulation, and somebody outside said, "Oh, we need to change that equation because we need this." We need this like a nuclear engine, but it's made out of hydrogen. We need this to work. We need to change this, but we could do that by going back into timeline, and we'll just change that theory, and we'll change the whole thing. We'll change the atomic structure, and I'll redo it, and no problem. And when they did that, they type in, and we need to change this guy's name. He was writing about it, and his name is Bernstein, so we'll edit him a little bit. And then when they hit the enter button, like it made the Bernstein Bear name change because it was like the same name. That was my that was my running theory for a while. Like I was trying to tie all these kind of crazy things together and to make more sense of what happened. I haven't shared that theory before, but to me that like kind of made kind of weird sense that the because I kind of try to memorize all the equations of the theories rather of how the universe works. I try to understand how the universe works and try to understand Maxwell equations and and Einstein's equations and try to understand all these things. And then if I see something change and then I see the Mandela effect and I'm like, and that I was looking for, Bernstein and how the name changed to Maxwell equations, and there was somebody that who was writing about it, which was a big deal. If you're writing a paper and you want to publish it, you'd have to go through those people. So it kind of made sense to me in a way, but maybe I shed light on it or maybe made a little more opaque. So my apologies. I don't know if I'm helping with all this conjecture, but it seemed to be, at the time, it seemed like something like it was a tie down, like I was saying before, like one seemed to match, to the other. Like certain names, like why do we have, celebrity names do certain things? Maybe they tie to something else. I think that might be the case for a lot of us. But anyway, so that was my big idea before. That was an old one. Anyway, thanks so much, Dark Wolf's Den, for commenting, and you get two large double digits pointing at you. Thanks for everybody if you're watching this later, and sorry if I rambled on a little bit, but I enjoyed talking to you, even though who's ever watching this later, we weren't talking back because we miss each other time-wise. But you could always comment. Thanks, like, subscribe, share. Thanks a lot. Have a good night. All right? I have to go